Welcome to Home Dad Chat, brought to you by the National At-Home Dad Network. My name is Brock,
My name is Danny.
and we are here to talk about life as stay-at-home dads. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
No, I don't want much. I even love handmade crafts made of macaroni. Come on now, you should know me. Times I might eat too much. No worry about my weight. Got the dad bod rocking on me. Sketches on my feet. Cargo shorts look good on me. I'm a dad, that's what I do.
Howdy, folks. Just me today. Brock is out sick with the stomach bug. He sent me a text about 10 minutes before we got ready to record and just said, nope, not going to happen. So, Brock, we hope you get better very quickly, buddy. I think we all understand how the stomach flu is. But to our great benefit, we have the one and only Melissa Davidson here with us today. And those that listen to the show regularly, we did intro her a couple of weeks ago. And that was just like a buildup. We wanted you to wait to really get to the event. No, we had a scheduling snafu. And as we're all parents, we absolutely get that. So, Melissa, welcome.
Thank you, Danny. I'm so excited to be here. I'm sorry that Brock is suffering with stomach flu. Have been dealing with it in our house too. So I am very sympathetic and definitely shouting out well wishes to Brock. But I'm so excited to be here with you.
Yeah. I was so glad to hear you're coming back. And for those who don't know, Melissa was one of our presenters for Milwaukee, had an amazing, interactive, inventive, very, very beneficial presentation where we still have members talking about it. I mentioned that you were looking to get on to San Antonio to be a presenter again, and every person, well, what can we do to make that happen? How do we make that happen? What do we have to convince her? Because you really did talk to a lot of the things that we run into as just as at-home parents of any kind, but especially at-home dads, in building connection with our children, connection with our partners, and learning a lot about the parameters of what it means to be in a relationship like that. So you're coming to San Antonio, and your presentation is going to be a little bit more specific. So why don't you tell us about that one and the title and where we're going to go?
Great. Okay. So I'm very excited to come back. And I'll be honest, I did not submit a presentation for last year because I was afraid I didn't have anything new to say. So it took me like 2 years to come up with something new. And my presentation this year is called, "Oh my God, did they push my buttons?" And I just really feel like it's so relatable. Any parent has had that button pushing moment.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, look at I made it seem like it's just one. Like every parent gets those moments probably daily, and if you have multiple children, more than once daily. And I've got some tips and tricks about how we can kind of flip the script on that. So I think some things are going to sound new, some things are going to be a refresher. So we'll just think of this as like the chapter 2 from what I shared last time.
Mm-hmm.
So
Perfect.
if it's okay, I'd like to start with a story from my family. It kind of tees up how this came to me. I've got an 11-year-old son, Zachary, and a 6-year-old daughter, Stella. And my husband and I, these kids keep us on our toes, just like in every other family. And the idea for this workshop came from a recent interaction that I had with Stella. She has taken to eating a very small meal at dinner, and then around 8 or 8:30, when it should be bedtime, this child's asking for food. You'd think by this point, this is not new. You'd think by this point we would have this down, and yet,
Right.
like we fall into like we take care of it, and then all of a sudden it's like it's brand new again.
Mm-hmm.
And when this child is hungry, it is not pretty at all. Like it's a full-on meltdown. She's screaming, she's crying. So one night, my daughter is hysterical, and Brian, my husband, is trying to help her through it. And I could hear it just really going downhill. And so I decided maybe it was time to tag out. And I can feel all my usual triggers coming up with Stella being hungry when she's been fed already, when it's bedtime, like this should all be over already. And why does this child not just listen? Because now, Danny, it was so bad that she was like, no food that I was suggesting was something that she wanted.
Oh, yeah.
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 Okay, so I'm sitting on the floor with Stella, and it's late and I'm tired. I always have this time that I feel like is like checkout time at night, and we were supposed to be at checkout time, and
Yes.
we were not at checkout time, right? So I sat on the floor And I took a breath and I said to myself, you can either handle this the way you usually handle it and get mad, or you could try something different tonight. And I took a moment and I said to myself, okay, why is this a problem for you? And I just explained it to you, right? I'm tired.
Hmm.
We already made a meal. Like it should not be going this way.
Right.
Then I took a moment and I said, what is going on with my daughter? She is hungry. She is also tired. She didn't have the opportunity at dinner to say to herself, if I don't eat now, I'm going to be hungry later. I'm
Hmm.
going to talk about that in a bit about sort of what I think is maturity and consequences, like understanding consequences. When I was able to put myself into Stella's shoes
Hmm.
and say, she is also by that point completely bonkers. Like the cortisol rush has happened. She's fight or flight, and her choice is fight, right?
Yeah.
All of this is going on. And I said, my job is to hold peace for her right now. My job is to hold calm for her right now. I'm going to give her simple choices, and I'm with her until this is done. And I really locked in with her. And
That's
I'm not going to
amazing.
say it was magic, but the result was different
Hmm.
than what we usually have. And I would say, I'm going to say like 10 or 15 minutes, like the hysteria continued for 10 or 15 minutes. And then she took a breath and she was like, okay, I'll have goldfish. Okay, so in my mind, we could have avoided that whole
We could
thing
just, yeah, you could have just
in
said
a million ways.
that. 30
she,
minutes ago, you could have
she
said
could
this.
have chosen that, right? She could have chosen it. So, so I had this like, okay, look, I chose to show up differently. And
Hmm.
what I did differently this time was I tried to think about, where is Stella coming from? I think it's been about a year and a half since I read something that was kids do well when they can. And for some
Oh,
reason in this moment, Stella couldn't do well.
right. Yeah.
She, I'm sure, would have wanted to. I'm guessing my child was not sitting around for the 30 minutes prior to asking for food, saying, I can't wait to see how I can mess with them tonight. Wait until my mom and dad start freaking out. It's going to be awesome.
Right.
I don't think
Right.
that
That
happened.
probably did not happen.
No. So I've been trying to really think through this concept. Kids do well when they can. And I
Hmm.
think that that changes so much. Okay, you have four kids. So
Hmm.
you know not everybody behaves the same way. Everybody's got their own personality.
Right.
You have to parent differently for each child, even though like you've got great tools because you've been doing it for so long. Um, Everybody has their own thing that they're coming with based on their personality, based on their age. And you and I have had some great conversations too about some chronic things that could be going on.
Hmm.
Are you dealing with a child who's got some kind of neurodivergence issue, a mental health issue, a chronic illness? I can give you every piece of information that I know about ages and stages for typical development. And then there's this whole other piece that comes in, right? About,
Right.
but my kid doesn't fit that mold.
Mm-mm.
And I'm kind of done with the mold, honestly.
Hmm.
But so what do I know about Stella? Right? In that
Right.
moment, what do I know about my kid? I know she's been dealing with a lot of anxiety. That's part of this. I know that she's 6 and control is a thing. I know, like I said before, she has no ability to say in a moment where she's making a decision, not no ability, but very little ability to say, if I choose this now, the result is going to be this later.
Yeah.
So here we are.
Hmm.
We're sitting with a kid, and I can either yell till I'm done, or I can choose to hold some calm with her and um hold a boundary with her, right? We're not, she could say she wants candy. Candy's not happening at 8:30 at night when she
Right.
needs to go to bed. I can
Yep.
still hold a boundary, which is we're going to pick, like, here's your 3 things you have to choose from. And I can choose to sit and calm with her or hold the calm
Hmm.
because she's not calm, but I can choose to bring the calm back to the situation as
Yeah.
best I can. So that's my story. And you've kind of heard a few things in there that have kind of been themes for me that as I've been talking with other parents, I can, you're nodding along with this. It's
Oh,
all very
absolutely. Yes.
relatable,
Absolutely.
and so what do we do next? We know these things. What do we do next?
Hmm.
So you want me to keep going? You want me to tell you what we do
Well,
next?
I want to say, actually,
Yeah.
that's up to you because I don't want you
Okay.
to give your whole presentation away, of
Oh,
course. But
right, right.
I think we should at
Mhm.
least give hints because there are
Yeah,
parents right now, they're going, okay, how did you do that?
right.
Because the maturity and the compassion and honestly, at the end of the day, the patience that it
Mhm.
takes to stop and say, wait, my job as the parent is, as you said, is to hold calm, to hold that calmness and to understand what my child needs in that moment. I know for me, my kids, they probably do it every night. They will just say, "Oh, I'm hungry." Okay, cool. So bedtime is 9:30 for my younger kids. So at 8:30, then we're gonna get a snack because you're not coming at me at 9:30. I'm like, okay, time to go to bed, go brush your teeth, brush your hair, yada yada. And oh, I'm hungry. Oh no, see, that's just not gonna work because I can't tell you no. I can't send my kids to bed hungry. I mean, I can, of course, but that's just awful. And growing up without having enough food myself, I'm like, yeah, I know what it's like. You're not going to be able to go to sleep. You're going to just lay there and grumble and cry. And this is the worst thing for you. But at that moment, having the patience to do anything other than yell at my kids it almost seems like the Mount Everest of parenting, but it is possible. And I love to hear that example from you because I know you are a very wise and mature parent. You've got your two kids and they have a lot of their own little, blips on the radar and issues and what have you, but you handle those so very well. So I love to hear that you did that. And I think that's something that we can all think about. But yeah, I think we need to know a little bit at least about, all right, well, then how do I do that? Where do I move forward from here? So all you.
Okay. Well, one thing that I want to say that you touched on when you talked about your personal experience as a child and knowing the feeling of going to bed hungry.
Hmm.
People who have heard me speak before know that a big thing I talk about is values. It
Yes.
is the blueprint for how we show up to everything we do. And, we're often triggered by something that runs counter to our values.
Hmm.
So not only do you have that compassion, and compassion, again, people who were with us in Milwaukee know
Hmm.
that I talked about values, and then I talk about 4 C's for connection. So having clarity about your values, having consistency in how you're going to kind of how you want to show up for things,
Hmm.
um, having confidence to show up the way you'd like to, and then having compassion for yourself and your kids. You zeroed right in on that compassion.
Hmm.
So I think that, knowing that we want to give our kids the grace of, like I said, I don't think my daughter is plotting against me.
Yeah.
I'm guessing your children at 9 o'clock or 8:30 at night are also not plotting
No.
against you. They just have their own motivations, and we
Hmm.
do too. And again, our decision making comes a lot from our values.
Hmm.
So that information, I don't think is new. I think that that kind of tracks with things I've shared before. What I've kind of layered in here is this whole concept around kids doing well when they can. And this other thing that just totally resonated for me that we'll touch on, but I don't want to give the whole thing away, is this concept about the space between stimulus and response. That
Okay.
concept is
Yeah.
attributed to Viktor Frankl,
Yeah.
who I don't know a lot about, but if you know Viktor Frankl, he was a
Hmm.
Holocaust survivor and
Yes.
then like a super prominent psychologist, neurologist. I mean, just to me, the concepts that are out there are fascinating.
Hmm.
So this concept around the space between stimulus and response it really resonated for me. And then I had this moment where I said, there's no pause button between stimulus and response with our kids when they're freaking out.
Yeah.
We'd love to hit a pause button, right? And
Hmm.
we don't always have the opportunity to hit a pause button for a variety of reasons. Now, I talked about, and I think you know this, that time at the end of the day, I talked about my checkout. I'd like to check out by a certain
Hmm.
time at night. I'd like to turn off mom duty and just go to Melissa gets to unwind at the end of the day.
Hmm. Yes.
You're also very complimentary to talk about how I'm a wise and mature parent because I gave you one example of a situation I handled well, That that
It's
is, if you were here,
no, that's okay to be. That's what people think of you. That's okay. All right.
that's
We
fine.
need that in our
That is
lives.
that
So
is
yeah.
lovely, and I'm a real person with a real family,
Yes.
and real thoughts, feelings, where I stand at any point in the day. I don't, I would love the pause button. And
Hmm.
I don't always, and I think most of us are not able to take a breath between my kid is triggering me, my buttons are pushed, and what am I going to do? Because I'm the adult in the situation.
Yeah.
Your kid is also not likely, at certain ages, not likely to suddenly lock in and say, oh, you know what? I'm behaving this way because it's like I want them to hit a pause button sometimes, and I want it to be like the side script. Well, I just wanted to let you know, here's what's really going on
Right.
inside me.
This is what I'm feeling
They
like.
can't, they don't, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
So what I want parents to be able to do is think about some of these situations that come up more frequently. We're never going to think of everything. That's impossible. There are
Hmm.
scenarios that come up that you're like, I couldn't have prepared for this. There's nothing that prepares you for certain things. But there are certain scenarios that do come up more frequently than others. And so when we take time, like you and I have this moment right now, but in a workshop, we have a little bit more time. And if you set some time aside with your partner, you also have time. It's really important to be on the same page.
Yes.
But thinking about, with no pause button, what are the things I'd like to do? And how do I have a strategy so I can maybe take a breath between stimulus and response, and I can decide, okay, this is what I know about me, this is what I know about my kid, and this is how I'd like to respond. So harnessing
Awesome.
the lack of a pause button, but planning in advance, and I think
Hmm.
the more experience we have as parents, the easier it is to show
Yes.
up in a certain way. And I also think, for me, learning about the cortisol rush,
Hmm.
that when you're stressed, that your brain, floods with cortisol, and then you're in fight, flight. There's more
Right.
to it too. Fight, flight, freeze. And now I've heard
Fawn.
about fawn.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much there. So
I
when
think
we
that's the
say,
polyvagal theory. Anyway, I'm sorry.
yes,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
well,
Continue.
whatever. Yes,
Whatever
yeah.
it is. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, 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 that was perfect. Um, yeah, what do we know about that? Because when we educate ourselves about things like this, like just general responses, when we dial better into who are you, what
Hmm.
goes into how you're showing up, and then when we really get clear about what do we know about our kids, or what's
Hmm.
a mystery. I don't feel comfortable sharing Zachary's whole story. I've learned that some things that happen with our kids, even though they've happened to us, are our children's stories. And
Right.
so I'll not share everything about some stuff that we've gone through with Zachary, but learning about neurodivergence taught us so much about, wow, I never expected that kind of behavior. What is going on?
Hmm.
And what do we need to know? Because again, expecting the best of somebody instead of looking at something from, why are you at your worst?
Yeah.
There's a reason. There's a reason we show up crummy
Hmm.
sometimes.
Yes.
So, yeah, and it's all of us. We're human. So, so really, really learning as much as we can. If we're interested, compassionate, loving parents, this is something to take some time on. It's worth a bigger pause
Hmm.
when it's not in the moment to educate yourself as much as you can.
Yeah. And I agree. And you said about basically preparing for it. For me, as an example, I know what my kids are going to do every night. At this point, I know they're going to come in and go, "Oh, Dad, I'm hungry. I don't want to go to bed." And they are just hungry. Of course, they don't want to go to bed, and they'll probably pick any excuse. And we know our kids like, I need a glass of water. Oh, I need to go to the bathroom. No, 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 go to bed if we're done at this point. But understanding that they're going to come to you with this, that this is going to happen, and preparing for it. And we talk, especially the way that I see what I do now. This is my job, right? And I look at it like I would any job. So I have a situation that's going to come up. How do I prepare for it? What do I do about it? So I sit and look at it and think, okay, well, how do other parents do it? What can I do with my kids, and how will my kids respond on all of that? But being prepared for it keeps me from losing my temper. And that for me is how I show my frustration the most is I will get mad. And I haven't really done that a lot in the last couple of years. I am getting, I guess, wise and mature enough to know how to get past it, but to understand that it's the frustration, not actually anger and what have you, and being able to talk with my kids even about that. And it's so much of what we do because like I'm sure most parents know when they need toilet paper or when their kids are going to need socks. You know, these things are going to come up over and over and over. So we prepare for them. And I love that you brought that out because I think it's something that unfortunately you're kind of just like a bear dancing on a ball through most of this. Most of us don't really know how to parent. We have an idea of what was done. We have an idea what other people do, but our child, as you said, is very, very specific. This is my child. Like people ask me, hey, my child's doing this. What should I do? I'm like, okay, well, first, all I know is my kids. And my kids would respond to this, but your kid is not my kid. So tell me about yours and let's see if we can find maybe something that would work for them, right? And understanding that need to basically tailor how we respond to our kids. And I love that you brought that up because most of what we run into that's frustrating, well, we knew it was coming. You know, why didn't we just get ready for it? Why didn't we say, okay, we're going to the pool. Okay, so before we leave the house, everybody get a snack. And I just want you to put it in your seat or put it beside you, put it in your bag. And when we get out of the pool and you're absolutely starving because you will be, well, there's your snack and you can eat that until we get home and I can, make lunch or whatever. But understanding that a lot of it is just the preparation and emotionally is so very important. And I really am just overjoyed that you brought that into the conversation. So,
Thank you.
one other thing I want to say real quick, and I don't want to talk any more than I want you to have all the talking, but I want to say hi to Zach.
Aw.
I was privileged and honored to meet Zach in DC when we were out there on a trip together, and I loved hearing about his character for D&D. And Zach, if you listen, love to hear more about it at any time. Had a great time talking to you. I really did. We both got that nerd thing, where we love D&D. So, but back to the subject at hand. So your presentation is going to go over a lot, or I shouldn't say a lot, but a bit of the stuff that you went previously. And I want to tell you that I appreciate that because what you talked about again was very important. We do have people that are new to the convention or who didn't go to Milwaukee, and I think it's great. But what you've done to improve it is phenomenal, Melissa. I mean, you're a fantastic speaker. I think you have just a very conversational quality, and you're looking for what the audience needs. And I think everybody in San Antonio is going to love whatever you bring to the table. Seriously.
Oh,
So
Danny, you have to stop because I'm going to have
pressure,
to be here every
pressure.
Wednesday now to get my fill of the ego boost. Because I am going to go through the rest of the day thinking I'm just the greatest thing since
It,
sliced bread. And
you have two kids. It won't be all day.
no, in
They'll
fact, it
come and
probably
cut your
won't even
legs.
be for an hour.
They'll cut your legs off from under you. That's
They
what they
will
do.
remind me that I'm human. I think the one thing I would share that I think is so foundational to the work I do with all parents is talking about what we can control and what we can't control. And I've said, if you've heard me speak before, you can only control yourself. We think we have control over these other people and these other situations around us. The truth is it's influence. We can influence. You can plan as best you can for the snack. I love that you and I have both just latched onto the evening. Like, I just feel like a meal, like eating should be done by a certain time. And for
Absolutely.
these people, it's not.
And
And that's okay.
yeah. And growing up, there was no snack after dinner was done, where this is where we're at. And I don't want to be my parents, right? I don't want to treat my kids like that. So I can understand the psychology literally behind your child wanting that snack later. It's absolutely fine. It irks me every time. I don't like it, but that's just my parents, voice in my head. So, but yeah.
The baked in values.
Mhm,
It's how you
yes,
were raised.
exactly.
It's how you were raised. So what you can control and what you can influence,
Hmm.
right? And I think being real solid about the fact that we cannot control another person, we can only influence them,
Right.
and then trying to set things up as best we can so that the piece about consequences, actions, and consequences. Okay, I know if I don't have my kids eat before we go to the pool, and we don't have a snack with us, all of a sudden the pool, which should be a very pleasurable experience, becomes a disaster because, oh my gosh, they're hungry. And I think it's really fair to consider when we're hungry, when we're tired.
Hmm.
These are not situations where we're going to show up at our best.
Right.
And that's the same for us. That's the same for our kids. So anticipating needs is really
Hmm.
helpful. And then giving yourself grace when you forgot to anticipate the need. I don't know about you, but I completely beat myself up. When I'm at the pool and the bag doesn't have snacks in it, I'm like, oh my gosh, how could I have
Right.
forgotten the
Right. Who
snack?
am I? I thought I was a
Yes.
parent. I've done this. Yeah.
And it's funny when you were talking earlier about I think it's more the at-home parent than it is the working out of the home parent who's responsible for supply management.
Hmm.
I don't ever point a finger at my husband when if the four of us go to the pool, there's no snack in the bag. That was
Right.
clearly on me.
Right. That's my
Again,
job.
you and it, right. And we that's a whole other talk. That's a whole other conversation about the expectations we have for ourselves and that
Hmm.
perfectionism. Why do we think we're letting everybody down
Hmm.
if we don't do it right? And by the way, that script is really crummy for how we show up to any of our interactions with our kids. Because if
Oh
you're
yeah.
already running the script in the back of your head, I'm not going to handle this properly. I always get angry. I'm dreadful at this. I'm tired. That negative self-talk does nobody any good. I
Right.
don't know how to stop it. I can tell people, oof, I hear a story there that I don't think is necessarily true.
Hmm.
You need to take some time to examine that.
Yeah.
So there's so many things we could talk about, and
Hmm.
and I can't fit it in all here, and I cannot fit it all in
No.
in San Antonio. But I think I'm just so fascinated. I'm so fascinated about how we show up. I love the idea that we have a choice about how we show up, and
Hmm.
and this the concept around compassion, I
Hmm.
think, is the most critical one. And I think when I'm talking about understanding yourself and understanding your child, that's where the compassion piece really comes to play.
Hmm.
And I think when we choose to not repeat patterns of the way we were raised, I think
Right.
there's an element of compassion there that we've taken the time to examine how we've come to show up the way we do,
Hmm.
and to make a conscious effort. I'd like to try it differently, and I'd like to try it differently with the hopes that there will be a very different result.
Hmm. Absolutely. And compassion not needing that logical backup. We don't need to know why our kids are in this mood necessarily. Compassion can overwhelm that and say, okay, you're wherever you're at right now. I'm going to just help you. I don't get it. I don't understand it, especially if you have kids that are neurodivergent. That may be like for me, I'm also neurodivergent. So I get my kids, absolutely. My child has an anxiety attack. And my wife, who is neurotypical, unfortunately, no, she's fine, won't get it. She went, why is she so worried about that? I understand she's just so pent up and crazy. And I'm like, because it's anxiety. That's it's what I've been telling you for 20 years here, babe. But to have that ability to understand where they're at is great. But my wife doesn't need that. She'll just go in and say, hey, sweetie, what can I do? How can I help you? Or here's a hug. And it doesn't have to be the logical reasoning of it. But on the other side, learning those things as we go along is very beneficial to putting that reason behind our compassion. Like, oh, this is how I need to help you, how I need to take care of you, right? And I love that. So I want to move on just a little bit before we run out of time because I want to talk about how people can, one, get in touch with you, and two, what you're doing business wise. You're the founder of Perceptive Parents, and that's something that you've been doing at least, what, 3 years?
It's a long
It's been a
time,
long
but
time.
active. I mean, it's been a very long. I founded the business in 2011.
Oh,
It's
okay.
just ebbed and flowed. Yeah, it's been a long time, but it's ebbed and flowed as life has unfolded. When you have your own business, you get to, wait a minute, when you have your own business and a spouse who's the main breadwinner, you can dip in and dip out as
Right.
as life
Yes.
kind of unfolds.
Yes.
I think if we don't give credit to the main breadwinner,
Hmm.
there's no way my family survives
Right.
on me, popping in and out of coaching.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
so I've
Same.
had perceptive
Absolutely same.
parents around for since 2011. I'm not doing the math right now.
14 years.
14
Well
years.
done. Nice.
Thank you. Thanks. I've been working with children and families my entire professional life, which again, if I say how long that is, I'm really going to give away my age. And I would like to live under the facade of let people just guess.
Yeah. 29 forever. I get it.
Forever,
I'm good.
forever.
I'm good with that.
So I have the parenting coaching. I work with people individually. I work with couples. There are workshops that I've been working to put together so we can work in small groups because I think there's a lot of power in
Hmm.
the opportunity to come into community with other people who are struggling with the same things we are.
I agree.
None of us, it's funny, Danny, we're talking about how we show up with our values, how each of our kids are different. And then I think it's so important to remember we're probably not unique. Like we're special, but we're not,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it might not show up exactly the same way, but just to know that somebody else is banging themselves over the head because
Hmm.
something's not going the right way. I think there's
Right.
something so cathartic about that. And we have so much to learn from one another.
Hmm.
Okay, so right now, the most information that I have is on my webpage, which is perceptiveparents.com.
Hmm.
I'm reachable at Melissa at perceptiveparents.com. Can't make it any simpler than that. I am in the process of starting a YouTube channel and a Substack.
Hmm.
Um,
Great.
I don't know what you call Substack besides a Substack. Hoping to put out there some videos
Hmm.
so that it's sort of a better connection, quick like reels.
Hmm.
But I also really like to write, and I feel like Substack is really going to give me that opportunity to put
Hmm.
more out there in writing. I just know not everybody wants to digest information that way
Yeah.
anymore.
Well, it's great though that you're giving us all options because again, what we have time for, a lot of comes down. I love to read, but if I have time to read, I've got a stack of 8 books that I'm working slowly through. So there's always something, but that you give people the reels, which I love. I don't know if you're going to be on TikTok. You're going that
I
direction.
haven't decided yet about
You
TikTok. I
should do
think
it.
once the reels start coming, it's going to be a lot easier for me to figure out where I'm putting them. So,
Yeah, you should
yeah,
do that. I'm just going to
there
tell you, you
could be
should do that.
TikTok. There could
It's
be.
it's a fantastic discovery platform. You're not going to put like the meat of your main content there necessarily, but so many people will find you through that. And honestly, it is a much younger audience for a big part of, definitely younger than me for sure. But those are the people I think that need to hear what you're saying because we have so many young parents and they have their first child. Like I have a 2-year-old. What do I do now? Ooh, yeah, buckle up. That's what you do, right? So, all right. So you're getting reels, and we're going to get more maybe from a Substack blog from you. That's awesome.
Yes. Yeah.
And what else do you have going on? Do you want to talk anything about maybe Third Path, or
Oh, sure, sure.
it's up to you?
You mean the other paying position I have for part-time?
Yeah.
I do work for Third Path Institute, and we are an organization that helps people to better integrate work and life. So
Hmm.
most people talk about work-life balance. We like to talk about work-life integration because to me, balance looks like two sides of a scale, and integration really looks like gears that move together.
Yes. Love it.
So yeah, I think there are a lot of really important aspects. And there's a really nice tie between parenting coaching and work-life integration. So I do some workshops for Third Path. I'm the director of programs and operations there. It just
Hmm.
happens to be a part-time gig, which is really cool. So it does leave me time. Because also as the what do I call myself? The primary flexor. That's a term I learned from Third Path, but I am the parent who primarily flexes when things are, when
I
life
love
kind
it.
of comes up and needs our attention. So it's nice to kind of have some tools at my disposal too by being the primary flexor and understanding what does my role look like.
Hmm.
Um, you know, I, again, for the at-home dads, if you are trying to balance anything else in addition to your parenting responsibilities and your house manager responsibilities, that's that boy, it's really hard. So
Hmm.
obviously, I have all the time in the world. I'm just sitting around here eating bonbons all
Right.
day,
Yes.
waiting for the next opportunity I have.
Right.
I envision a day where I can just go out to lunch and leisurely,
Hmm.
walk around. And yeah, that's not my life.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm thinking 10 or 12 years you'll be there because
Maybe,
the kids will
maybe.
maybe be out of the house, maybe. And then
Okay, so the other
maybe.
thing I've really been thinking about recently, I had to write it down so I remember so I get it correct. Expectations are disappointments waiting to happen. I learned that from Brene Brown. I'm like super
Hmm.
fangirl on Brene
Oh,
Brown.
yeah, as you should be.
So I'm going to not pick a number of years within which my life might become more simple,
Hmm.
just so I don't end up disappointed when
Yeah,
it doesn't turn out that way.
right.
But may we raise children who, roots and wings, that they go off and fly on their own. But I think our generation of parenting, like our style, lends itself to, I'm not saying other generations didn't do this, but I think we're much more attuned to um, independence. Pure independence is probably not our ultimate goal. I want
No.
my kids to stay connected to me too.
Hmm.
And I want my kids to know that wherever I am, they always have a home.
Right. Right. And that's such a difference, I think, in a lot of the values that we had previously, where the thought was, oh, you live with your parents? My kid can live, like you said, anytime. If you need a place to go. Now, I want them living here full time? Not really. I do want them to go out and have their own life. But I love the fact that Fabian, who's 18, asked, "Hey, can I come home for spring break? I want to get the time off work." And as soon as he saw me, he ran up to me and hugged me really, really hard and just said, "I missed you, Dad." And I'm like, "Okay, don't make me cry. We got to put this stuff in the truck and drive 2 hours home. I need to stay emotionally stable here." But that my kids want to be here just fills my heart with joy. It really does. And the thought of, let's say, 5 years from now, if he's gotten whatever, he's studying psychology, so let's say he's gotten his master's in 5 6 years, whatever, and doesn't want to go get a house, doesn't want to go get an apartment, wants to move back in. I'm willing to discuss that, what that would mean. I mean, as an adult, that's a little bit different. You're more like a roommate at that point. Um, but that he wants to be here for me is that's what I want to create in all or engender in all of my kids. You don't have to. I don't need you to stay here, and I kind of want you to go away for a little while at least. But having that relationship where you know that you can always go back to that stable base. And I will say, for me, fatherhood has always been like that because when I first started as a dad, I tried to differentiate between motherhood and fatherhood. And in hindsight, that's kind of ridiculous. In the end, the overall general, it's all kind of the same. And we're kind of looking just for the same things, have the same goals. But a lot of times dads are like at a playground or playing, there's a tree to climb, and the dad will sit and he's basically, okay, I'm right here. That's a tree you want to climb. You got to be careful. The limb might break, you might fall, you might get hurt. And then you sit as a dad and let them go do that, you know and you have that opportunity to know the dangers and to have this stable, safe foundation you can come back to if you do get hurt, right? And that's how I view my kids going out into the world. These are the dangers you'll see in the world. These are the things you're going to run into. We're here. We're right here. We're here if you need to come back, if you need to move back in, if you just fall down and get hurt and want to come over and have a meal or to have a cry or whatever you might need, that we're still there as that stable foundation in our kids' lives. And I think that's far more important than being able to say, well, my son bought a house this week or whatever, financial movement he made to make his life a little, I guess, quote unquote, better, you know?
I
So,
like the idea that we we operate better in community. Humans started out in tribes, and I think there was again a definition of success a few decades ago was how do you stand up on your own 2 feet? And
mhm.
what do you do independent? Because I'm so independent, I don't need help from anybody else. And I think if that's your definition of success, great. I'm not
Mhm.
going to judge that. That's a way that some people choose to live. In our family, a goal that we have that you and I are share here for our families is that desire to feel like, I'm always here for you.
Hmm.
Do your thing and define
Yeah.
success the way you'd like to define success. And please know. I love the song Ain't No Mountain High Enough.
Hmm.
And we've been singing a lot lately in our house when we're in the car. We have a feel good mix, and that song's on our feel good mix. And like, I want to touch my children. I want to put a hand on a knee and be clear. Like, ain't no mountain high enough, ain't no
Right.
valley low enough, ain't no river wide enough to keep me from getting to you.
Hmm. Right.
I will do everything I can every time I can to be there. And I think that to provide that kind of foundation for our kids, what a gift. Again, that's a choice that our families are making. I just put you in the same boat as me.
Hmm.
But that's a choice that our families are making, and that's one that's right for us. And I do think there's so much importance. I acknowledge my way is not necessarily the right way. My way, our way. I'm parenting with my husband. Our way is what's right for our family.
Right.
And I'm going to just put in a little plug. That system I have, Choose Your Boundaries, is intended, while there's a framework, the intention is for you to figure out what's right for your family. I cannot
Hmm.
stand a parenting book that tells you it's this way or you've done it completely wrong and you've
Right.
totally messed up your kid.
Right.
When I designed Choose Your Boundaries, which is easily located on my website, it's like all over the website, so easily located. I designed it with this concept in mind that every family is different, and you need to do what's right for your family.
Hmm.
I can give you again tips, tricks, hacks, whatever. I think we all have the answer about what's right for our family inside us. And it just takes
Right.
some work to figure out what that is.
Hmm. It's fantastic. Melissa, again, thank you so much for being here. We're about out of time. So just can't wait to see you in San Antonio. And I encourage everybody that's coming to the convention to go find you and just take a moment to talk to you if they can, because truly you have so much wisdom to give. And as parents, we're always looking for good advice, I will say. I would take it any day of the week because I still don't know what I'm doing.
Oh,
Um,
you're better than
so
you're doing better than you think. Sorry,
I'm
one
better than
last
I
plug.
was.
Oh,
Yes.
you're better than you were yesterday.
Yeah.
We
Or
all
15
are,
years
right?
ago. I'm definitely better than that guy. But
If
one more plug.
anybody after hearing this is saying, "Wow, I would like some time with Melissa, and I would like it right away," I do 30-minute free consultations, and you can find a spot on my website to go ahead and sign up for one. I clearly enjoy this,
Hmm.
and I'm happy to share anything I can anytime.
Wonderful. Awesome. And we will have all of your information in the show notes so that we can make sure that anybody that does want to get in touch with you. And before we end, I want to say if anybody wants to get in touch with our show, we are podcast at athomedad.org. And any of us who know us personally, you can reach out on Messenger or whatever means you might want to. Again, Melissa, thank you so much. And we will see you in San Antonio.
See you then.
Good night, everybody.
I'm a dad, that's what I do.